Hi guys, welcome back, and it's Anna from Kitten Cat Shop if you're new here. A little doll content from my studio here. This video, actually the project started, well, about a year and a half ago actually. A friend of mine reached out to me and said that she had a doll, a unique doll that she had found in a collector's collection and didn't know much about the doll, but I had expressed an interest in dolls of this size and this type, and she said, would you like the doll? She needs some work, but you can probably do it. And I was ecstatic. Any doll. And so it kind of led down a rabbit hole, and eventually I decided to turn that doll into what you see here, and I filmed some highlights of the process, mostly her underpinnings, because it did kind of turn into a historical sewing project, and I wanted to get those details correct, and there was a lot of rabbit holing. I do want to thank American Duchess. They came out with their book on how to draft patterns for humans as historically accurate garments. A lot of the things we have to extrapolate from existent samples, so that's why the air quotes under historic. And also the fact that sometimes when you're sewing for dolls, things that work in full scale don't always work in miniature, so I kind of wanted to show the highlights of the pieces that I had to adapt to fit on a doll. And that footage unfortunately just kind of sat on the card for a long time. I did do a photo shoot with the doll and published those pictures online. I've shared the images of the doll many times on specifically my doll photography site, which is Fox and Moon Doll Studio on Instagram, but also Kitten Cat Shop has shown some things as well. And then this past year, the virtual doll convention for the Grace Fitzpatrick series did a historical series of clothing, and this is one of my favorite outfits from this set. It kind of reminds me of a Madame du Pompadour inspired ensemble, and I took one of my older Tonner dolls that I had gotten and restyled her, redid her hair, and she may stay in that look permanently. I really like her in that. But it got me to thinking about this project that never seemed to be quite finished, and finished her and decided, let's get that footage out. Now, unfortunately, because it's been about 18 months, some of the final filming for her bodice and jacket for her dress was lost to time. However, the focus of the project really was on all the things that went underneath this outfit. And this is, I named her Marie Mystery because, well, I'll explain in the video that follows. This isn't really a tutorial, it's just kind of more like the highlights of creating things for dolls, and I hope it inspires you to try something that might be a little different with one of your dolls, to try some historical sewing, or at least what looks like historically accurate clothing for your dolls. And I'll see you. Caveat, I was experiencing some voice issues, so there may be some periods where the sound has been replaced with a voiceover. I do apologize for that. There's also some little shaky camera work here and there, because that was before we had some additional equipment and hand holding the camera was a little bit rough. I will try to stabilize that in the software. I don't know how well that's going to work, so I do apologize for that, but I think the footage is still valid and it's interesting to me. I hope it's interesting to you. Thank you. Hi guys, it's Anna from Kitten Cat Shop, and I've got a little Christmas unboxing. A dolly friend of mine sent me a text message and asked if I would be interested in, well, this little mystery doll. And package arrived today. Took the mailing label off and just kind of pre-opened the tape. So as I just mentioned, my friend inquired if I'd be interested in basically rehabbing this unknown doll. And she did send me several pictures. We tried to do some research to find out where this doll may have come from, who made the doll, when the doll was made. We didn't really come up with much. You see the wig here, and I'm going to pull this out. This wig we thought was a clue to who the doll originally was and possibly the maker, but it turned out to be a bit of a red herring. The wig, well, it's not in the best of shape. It's very dusty, it's a little discolored, and it is a hard cap wig, which typically hard cap wigs are made for a specific doll. They're made on the doll's head. It sort of fit the doll, and then we had this boat. And I'm going to insert a picture of where we think this wig came from. But again, the wig doesn't go with the doll. I think somebody may have bought the original doll, used the wig, and redressed the doll, possibly, and kind of tried to match it up and found a doll that was similar. She did pack it well. There's a lot of bubble wrap, but the doll is in rough shape, and we knew this going into this project. She is a project doll. I am going to remove some of the bubble wrap. I will have to cut this portion of this clip short because there are some anatomically sort of correct bits to the doll, and I don't want to cause any issues with the algorithm. The doll is kind of unique. Bear with me, sorry, my head came into the camera. Where your typical ball jointed doll, the face plate, or the part of the head that has the face, is usually what is attached to the doll. That's where the S-hook goes. And the back is just a cap that kind of closes up the back. Well, this one is actually the reverse. This one, the head is the back that's supposed to sit against the back of the neck. And here I'm going to pull this bubble wrap off so you can see, and it's kind of a mess back there. It doesn't want to sit properly. They tried to attach the head front with, it looks like hot glue, and there was some wax, and there was some hard glue, and you can see this spaghetti monster of elastic coming up out of the neck because they tried to string her with a single piece of elastic. And usually with ball jointed dolls, the arms are one piece and the legs and the torso are the other. So again, this is going to get cut short. Thank you, guys. I need to do a little bit of a modesty check for YouTube. But she is a very lovely sculpt. She's actually got lots of little moles and freckles that are painted. And usually with these dolls, these are actually like porcelain paint. So they become a part of the doll in the firing process. She's got a little bit of a manicure and some blushing on her hands. They actually went back and actually made some, let's see if we can lift her up and show you a close-up here. But she actually has a lifeline, a love line, so they've actually gone back in and cut those lines again. Her nails have been trimmed out for the blushing, and some parts of her look like they attempted to glue suede. I don't see leather. Typically with the porcelain dolls, you'll use a pig skin, since it's very thin, and kind of prevent the porcelain from rubbing up against itself. But it looks like they tried to do a hot glue. So I'll have to see if I can remove that. I am going to order some pigskin to see if I can do some sueding for her, and of course restring her, because she'll definitely need that. I'm gonna turn her over here. I don't see any maker's marks on her body. I'm gonna kind of open up her chest. Nothing on the chest cap. She has some markings on her neck. I see 11-12- it looks like this is a 2011, and then it looks like an S or FK. So, and then that's just the piece of wire there to kind of hold the elastic in place. So that is her body. And this is the back of her head. So, like I said, there's quite a bit of hot glue. Looks like they tried to keep her together. It looks like this is the bottom of the head. A lot of elastic here. And then this is her faceplate. I'm going to bring this up close. She's quite lovely. A little beauty mark on her face. She has painted eyes, not inset eyes. And perhaps in the mold, this is where magnets were supposed to go to hold it together. So there's a key. So it appears her face fits like so. So, but there she is. There's my new Marie the Mystery. Well, I was able to get her cleaned up. I was able to get the head cleaned up enough that I think I can go ahead and maybe figure out if there's a way to place the magnets to hold the head. There's still a little bit of this hard glue, and I think this might have been to hold the bar in the head, but I did get all of the wax and hot glue out, and it appears that they did try to use some kind of hot glue or some kind of adhesive in place of the sueding to keep the porcelain pieces from making direct contact, but over time it's yellowed, it's dried, and it's become very kind of crusty. So, but I did manage to get most of it out. I did save some of the elastic. They had her strung a little oddly. I'm used to the body going through and then the arms across, but it looked like they actually tried to bring the body, the arms, and everything up through just this small opening here. So it was creating, I mean, they had like several large knots that were just keeping the head from really making a connection. So I'm gonna try, number one, to get some pigskin leather to leather suede her, and maybe try a couple of diameters of the bunchy elastic, maybe the 3 like she's got. I don't think she'll be able to hold much more, but until that part, she is kind of as she is. I did try to clean up her part. She's still got a little bit of this dried, hard, yellowed adhesive type stuff. But when I get ready to suede her, I'll make sure that they're clean before I adhere the suede. Hi everyone. So I cleaned off all of the, I guess it was hot glue sueding or old contact cement from all of the pieces. And what I've got here is my washi tape. And what I'm going to do is I need to make patterns for the sueding. And this is actually a deer split. It's very thin, and as you can see, it's very flexible. And I think the color being so light will actually work really well with the base bisque color of the doll, since she's not very, she has body blushing, but you know, she's a very pale doll. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the patterns to fit inside the interior parts of her joints. And then what I'm going to do is take those patterns and transfer them to my leather and cut those out. And then I'm going to adhere them with contact cement. And I've got my glue brush and my gloves. And the contact cement, you do want to make sure that you use in a well ventilated area. It can get kind of stinky. So once I get all of her pieces traced and patterned, and then we'll cut them, and then I will spend the day gluing those leather kips in, and then she'll be ready to string. Okay, so Marie has been sueded, and I did restring her. I put some magnets in her head, but due to the sueding and the way that the head is jointed, it doesn't want to stay closed. So for now, she's just got a piece of elastic. I may try to do some stronger, bigger magnets. And I think when she has a wig cap and a wig, that'll help take care of that. But she's doing pretty good as far as holding her head poses and her arms. And you can see, I think the white deerskin worked out really well. And she's got it where anything might rub. So I'm happy so far with her. Like I said, she's holding things pretty well. I didn't want to string her too tight. I was afraid it would put too much pressure on the edges. And when I looked at her bodice on the inside, when I was cleaning the glue or whatever, I noticed some hairline marks on her underarm. So she has been reinforced with milliput underneath and with the sueding, so that should make it strong, so I don't have to worry about. But normally these dolls are strung, and I say strung loosely, with springs and swivels, and that puts a lot more stress on the individual pieces. And from my understanding, it can also cause some friction inside the channels. And most of her channels are straight. I mean, her legs are quite large channels, but there are some spots where they're very small, and especially down here at the bottom of the shin. So I chose to string her with the bungee elastic, 2.5 millimeter, and that seems to be working really well. Like I said, she's got enough tension to kind of hold things, but I don't think it doesn't feel like there's too much pressure. And for the most part, when I sit her up or stand her up, she'll stay sitting. The one of her knee joints didn't fit quite right. It doesn't want to lock. I don't know if it's supposed to be a lock. So she's not going to be able to stand on her own because the knee just doesn't want to lock. And I think that's just the, you know, I mean, it's a porcelain doll. It's slip cast in a plaster mold. So there's that. I'm actually going to be starting on her underpinnings. My idea is like a Georgian or 18th century costume for her. We're going to start with her underpinnings, and for this particular time period she would have had stockings, and not really stockings that we would think of today, but kind of straight woven fabric, usually a wool or something like that. I think knit stockings were rather rare. I based this off of a pattern, a historical pattern for mid 18th century stockings. I took her measurements and kind of drafted out my pattern piece. I know it's going to need some refinement. I've got plenty of fabric. I decided to do blue stockings since that was a thing, and this is actually a very very finely knit stretch jersey, so I think it'll help compensate for any errors. Okay, so I have my first prototype of the stockings, and actually pretty good. She'll have a garter about here, typically the garter right underneath the knees to hold them in place. And let's see if we can turn it sideways. So I do need to come in and shape this ankle a little bit more. I think that's a little wide. And the toe box is a little tall, so I can remove that. But I'm happy with this. I'm happy with the way that this came out. Some of them are very long and narrow, and some of them are kind of you know, wide like this, because this is like the arch of the foot. So I think I am good to revise this pattern, and the actual ones, I want to do some embroidery up the side. That's where I see a lot in my research. So I have refined the stocking pattern. I have put some stabilizer on the back of the jersey. It's a wash away stabilizer. And I have my embroidery thread, and I've marked where the ankles are. With the clock stockings, a lot of times they featured embroidery kind of coming down along that seam, and that's kind of what I aim to do, is just do some little figurative leaves or something. Nothing too fancy, just because it's such a small scale. So I finished my embroidery. I just decided to do some simple vines in white, and as you can see, I've got it traced out here. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a small running stitch in the matching thread, just so I can kind of see where I need to go for the sewing, and I will have a pair of stockings. So they are done. I do need to make some sock garters. Traditionally they would have tied ribbon or had some fancy embroidery to tie right under the knee to hold the stockings in place. I think the embroidery looks great. I will have to make her shoes. We already know that. But yeah, I'm really pleased with how they turned out. So our next step is going to be to make her a chemise. I'm ready to move to the next step, and that is going to be her chemise. And I've kind of decided on which type of dress I want to do, and so I am making the chemise accordingly. It's not much different than the medieval pattern. The sleeves are shorter, the length is a little shorter, usually only went to about the knee, and the neckline is going to be much deeper. These fashions usually featured a very low neckline, so I am ready to get my cotton cut out, and it'll just be some straight stitching, simple hems. I might put a little bit of ruffled lace here since that's to the elbow, but that's really about it. The neckline, I'm not sure if I want to do a bias. In the full-size garment, there's usually enough material to fold over and finish that edge with just a rolled edge. I don't think that's going to work with the muslin that I found, so I may have to cheat and use the doll clothing method of using a little bit of iron-on interfacing, a very lightweight, just to get that edge turned under and finished. It's lovely. It came out so well. We've got the lace at the sleeves. They should end at the elbows. We've got our neckline turned, and I did end up using that little trick of using the lightweight fusible interfacing to finish it. I've got my gores, and it's ready to put on her. Yay! Morning. Well, it's morning for me. So we finished the stockings, we finished her garters, and I made her chemise. And now I am working on the next layer, which is going to be her under petticoat. And at this time in the 1780s, 1790s, which is what I'm going for, they didn't wear hoops or paniers. What I'm finding is corded petticoats for summer, and for colder climates and colder weather, they would wear a quilted petticoat underneath all of the skirts. And so actually doing quilting would have not worked. It would have been too bulky and too cylindrical. But I do want some structure underneath that skirt. So I actually found this waffle print, and I think it kind of mimics the look of the quilting that I saw. And with all of the pleating and everything, that should give that right shape. And on top of that, we'll have to make our rumps. For the petticoat, they had openings in the sides, and that was so that you could get your hands into your pockets under the skirt, which is kind of clever. And they would use tapes that would enclose the top and hold all the pleats and become the ties. And the back would cross over the front and back, and then tie in the rear, and then the front would tie in the rear. So that way all the bulks of the knots would be at the back of the dress, underneath the rump, which is what it was called. That's the next piece to make. So what I'm doing right now is I'm pleating. I think for the other ones I may just end up cartridge doing some fine gathers, because typically those were gathered at like 1/4 inch pleats. I don't think that's going to be possible, but all of the quilted petticoats I saw had much more pronounced pleats, so I think this will work. I've finished the petticoat. It's got quite a deep hem, and I think this is good. It'll help kind of weight out and support the skirt. We've got the pleats, and we've covered it, and we have the side openings so that she may possibly slip her hands into a pocket underneath. So kind of a sneak peek what we've got going here. As you can see, the front overlaps. There's her little pockets, slits, and that has been tied and the front crossed, and then the front has been tied to the back. And we have her chemise, we have her stockings, and now we have her under petticoat. And I mentioned that I needed to make the rump or bum, false bum. So she actually has a really good chapter on how to do this. They used a mattress ticking since it's supposed to hold feathers, or originally it might have held cork. But I have this shirting material that has the same kind of striped appearance, and I'm not going to use feathers or cork. The fabric's going to be light enough and small enough. It's going to want to kind of bell out anyway from the pleats and the gathers. So I'm just going to fill this with polyfill. So I have made my pattern based on her measurements, and it is time to cut out the skirt piece and our pockets and get them sewn, stuffed, and attached to a waist tape for the tie to go around the waist. Well, my false rump is done. This is just hilarious, but I think it came out really well. It is ready to go on. Once I get this on, then I can actually work on her petticoats and her dress, because you need this measurement to determine how long the back of the skirts and the petticoats need to be. So I've been working all morning on the stays, and because it's a firm doll, the stays aren't really going to squish anything or change anything. So we kind of have something that sort of looks like the stays. I need to bind them, punch the holes so that they can be laced. The red is just some temporary washable pen to mark the lines that would have been the cording on the stays. And I saw online an example of strapless stays for this time period, or they would have the stays and they would wrap around to the front to the back. So I'm going to go ahead and get these finished. We have her stays in place, spiral laced, and yeah, so now it's time to put on the bum roll, and then we can do our measurements for her petticoat. I finished the stays yesterday, and she has her little scarf, fichu, and okay, this is hilarious. We have our rump pads, and today I have finished the petticoat. This will stay out from the dress. This is the main fabric, and I have done my pleated hem, pleated top, and it is ready to go on. It's a little longer in the back because it has to accommodate the rump in the back. So, and it should be right above her ankles. That should be the right height. After this is done, then it's the complicated part. We have to get to the bodice, and in the Italian gown it's 4 pieces in the back, and then it's pinned across the front to close it, and it features a skirt on the back which can be pulled up a la polonaise when you're walking. So I'm ready to put this on her, and I'm going to call it a day for today and get ready to draft her bodice. I apologize, we've lost some of the footage. It's been a while since I made the doll and made her outfit, but I wanted to go ahead and come back and at least show you the pieces on the doll. And again, I used the American Duchess for the pattern drafting, and as you can see, her bodice was completed. This wig sheds a little bit. Back then, the sleeves were actually angled at the elbows, which I found interesting, and close fitted. We have a little bit of trim, and the front was traditionally held together by pins. Sometimes they would have a stomacher or a piece on the top, but this particular one didn't. And in place of the tiny pins, for the most part, I just did little stitches. She's got her bow, her fichu, and the bodice, kind of like a jacket with a tail attached. So she's got her skirt panel pieced, and as you can see, it's got the little point at the back that's supposed to kind of help it go through those artificial rump we had in the back. And then she's got her skirt, which is just a plain panel, and underneath we have our ties, and that would allow the skirt to come up and do its polonaise. I finished her cap. I didn't do any ruffles or decoration on the cat because she is going to have a hat so that the ribbons up there would not show. But we have the wig all enclosed. I did pull out some of the ringlets for her hairstyle, and she has her piece. I think it looks really good. We get into her final accessories, and one of those is going to be her hat. And the hats at this period were not functional. This style, this was really adding a bit of ostentation. She would have worn her little cap indoors. When she went out, she would have added this, and it's just a small, very flat disc. Some of them were very gathered in the center. The book had one they called the brain cat because it looked like a the brain with all the things. I split the feathers to get a curved feather, which is something they would have done in the millinery. And it just kind of sits kind of proud on the top of the head. And the ties actually go in the back. It wouldn't have been down around her ears. It would have been at the back underneath the cap. And then the last piece she needed was her shoes. And I thought I had gotten lucky. Virtual Doll Convention did a similar palette and had a blue shoe with a pink ribbon, but I think it was the stockings that interfered. So I took a pair of MSD size doll shoes, trimmed out the ankle strap to make them a pair of loafers or slippers, which would have been more accurate, and added some decorative faux buckles. The hem lines on these dresses exposed the ankles so that people could see the embroidery on the stockings and they could see the heels, because women started to wear heels at this point. Thank you for sticking with me if you got this far. I do have some photos of Marie, and I am going to put those on screen, kind of a carousel, so that you can enjoy those and see some of the details and the scenes I did with her. Like, again, I really did have a good time learning new things, such as the leather sueding, how porcelain dolls work. It really took me down a rabbit hole of some different and unique BJDs that I'm not used to seeing. And if you like this video, please like, subscribe. I love when I get comments, so if you have any questions about anything specifically, or just in general, leave them below. I do read them and I try to respond to all of them. I will include the information for the book that I used. The majority of my reference material is available online, various Pinterest links, reenactors, historical dress aficionados, and a lot of museum stuff. I do also have several books on like color plates for history. So, but I'll try to include those references. If there's something that you're looking for specifically, let me know. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye, guys.